Now let's change gears and talk about VinFast, because the Vietnamese electric car maker made its stock market debut on the Nasdaq on Tuesday, and it was a day to remember. Its shares rose over 200% in a single day, meaning the company is now valued at $85 million.
Ford just handed out $50,000 trucks for free and no one stopped them. At first, it looked like a gift. Zero down, zero payments, no catch. But buried in the paperwork was a 32-page contract. And behind the contract, a shutdown plan, a tracking system, and a trap so quiet most buyers never saw it coming. So who actually qualifies for these trucks? Why are dealers being cut out of their own sales? And what happens when the IRS shows up at your door for a gift you never asked to pay taxes on? Because by the time this video ends, you'll realize this wasn't about moving vehicles. It was about rewriting the rules of ownership itself. The free truck illusion. It began with a whisper, not a press release. An anonymous social media post claimed a friend had received a brand new Ford F-150 with no payment, no loan, and no lease. Then came screenshots of emails from Ford itself, offering mid to high trim SUVs and trucks at zero cost. People thought it was a scam. Then they saw the delivery trucks roll in. The vehicles were real, so were the titles. Across 18 major cities, buyers were receiving keys to vehicles priced between $48,000 and $72,000. There were no monthly payments, no traditional financing terms, and no dealership paperwork, just a 32-page digital contract and a list of behavioral requirements. On the surface, it looked like Ford was panicking, dumping excess inventory in exchange for goodwill, but that is not what was happening. This was not a fire sale. It was a strategic reset of the rules. Behind each free vehicle was a dense web of tracking, ownership limits, data harvesting, and public relations enforcement. These were not gifts. They were experimental platform. Ford was not selling a truck. It was recruiting unpaid brand ambassadors, content producers, and live test subjects. The company knew full well that the word free would spread faster than any advertising campaign. And it worked. Online applications flooded in. Local news stations ran glowing features. And Ford's name began trending nationwide. Consumers were stunned. But the real shock was yet to come. Before that illusion could crack, Ford's financial foundation had already started bleeding. The bleeding balance sheet. Ford's financial problems are not theoretical. They are immediate, measurable, and compounding daily. Every unsold vehicle sitting idle on a dealership lot costs Ford an average of $29 in daily interest. When you multiply that by 112,000 excess units currently on dealer property across the United States, the figure climbs to over $3 million in daily financing costs alone. And that number does not account for depreciation, storage, or insurance. Ford's three-quarter streak of overproduction, where supply has exceeded demand by nearly 37%, has created a backlog that the market simply cannot absorb. These are not aging base models. These are flagship trims of the F-150, the Explorer, the Bronco, and the Mustang Mach-E, vehicles that were supposed to secure profit margins, now acting as fiscal liabilities. During Ford's most recent earnings call, Chief Financial Officer John Lawler avoided using words like crisis or collapse, but in dealer circles the language is more direct. A dealership executive in Houston described the situation bluntly. This is no longer about moving inventory. It's about stopping the bleeding before the bank steps in. That dealership, once a regional leader in Ford sales, has since canceled more than 40% of its open vehicle orders. Overhead drone footage from key regions like Michigan, Texas, and Kentucky revealed dealership lots overflowing, not just with unsold vehicles, but with overflow units parked in employee areas, service lanes, and even nearby vacant properties. With Wall Street watching closely, Ford's credit rating outlook has shifted to negative. Moody's and Standard & Poor's both cited sustained inventory pressure and declining pricing power as warning signs. The numbers alone were troubling, but the way Ford decided to solve the crisis revealed a more calculated strategy, and it began with handpicking who would benefit. Think this is too outrageous to be true? Let us know in the comments. And make sure to subscribe for more exclusive insights. Ford's secret agenda is just the beginning, and we've got the whole story for you. The Qualification Maze. Ford's vehicle acquisition initiative did not appear in primetime television ads. It did not show up in dealership flyers or banner ads. Instead, it rolled out quietly, targeted email, private landing pages, and invitation-only portals. And the first thing any participant had to do was pass a strict qualification screening. The criteria were not about fairness. They were about utility. Ford required applicants to be between the ages of 25 and 38. with household incomes between $75,000 and $125,000. Their credit scores had to exceed 680, and they could not currently own a Ford. That last requirement was crucial. This was not about customer loyalty. It was about conquest, converting drivers from rival brands. Applicants were also required to live in one of 18 carefully chosen metropolitan areas. Cities like Atlanta, Austin, Chicago, Seattle, and Washington, District of Columbia. What do those markets have in common? Rising competition from foreign automakers, declining Ford brand loyalty, and heavy media saturation. Each applicant also had to have active accounts on at least 2 major social media platforms and agree to provide brand-friendly content twice per week. The vehicles offered through the program were not leftover stock. They were highly desirable trims: the F-150 Lariat, the Bronco Outer Banks, the Explorer ST, and the Mustang Mach-E Premium. Each model carried embedded software designed for telemetry, voice recognition, and remote monitoring. From the outside, it looked like a win for consumers. From the inside, it looked more like a controlled rollout of a new kind of ownership model, one where the manufacturer never really lets go. And while customers navigated this maze of requirements, someone else was quietly cut out of the loop entirely: the disappearing dealer. In the old model, Ford dealers were the lifeblood of the brand. They were the face of the company in small towns, suburbs, and urban markets. They handled everything from inventory financing to warranty repairs, local marketing, and trade-ins. Now, many of them are watching helplessly as Ford bypasses them completely. Robert Martinez owns 3 Ford dealerships in Texas. In a recent interview, he explained the new reality. Every time Ford gives a vehicle away, we lose over $3,000 in margin, plus nearly $2,000 in future service and finance revenue. That's how we survive. They're gutting their own infrastructure. Martinez is not alone. Across the country, dealers report walk-ins demanding the same free truck offers they've seen on social media, offers that dealers cannot match and are not authorized to explain. Many dealers have resorted to informal price matching and quiet workarounds, submitting fake warranty claims to recover some of the losses. Others are preparing to exit the franchise altogether. In California and Florida, regional dealer associations have filed formal regulatory complaints alleging that Ford is violating franchise agreements and state laws designed to prevent manufacturers from directly competing with their own retailers. And the numbers prove the collapse. Service departments report declining foot traffic. Financing offices sit idle. Regional advertising budgets have been slashed. In some cases, dealerships that once carried over 100 vehicles now have fewer than 20. This is not a slowdown, it is a phase-out. Still, not everyone believes the dealers can survive this break. Wall Street is watching, and what they see is far more than a sales dispute. The Wall Street warning. When the financial community begins to whisper, it is usually the beginning of the end. But in Ford's case, the whispers have become a siren. Moody's recently downgraded the automaker's outlook to negative. Their language was clinical, precise, and chilling. Deteriorating pricing power, persistent inventory imbalances, reduced liquidity in operational channels. In plain terms, it means Ford can no longer sell its vehicles at sustainable prices, and the imbalance between what it builds and what it can move is becoming structural. The numbers are grim. In just the first quarter of this year, Ford's North American division posted a $3.8 billion operating loss. That is not an annual figure. It is for 3 months alone. A hemorrhage of that scale would bankrupt smaller manufacturers. For Ford, it has triggered alarm bells across the financial sector. The company's stock price has already fallen by 23%, even as the broader market has shown signs of recovery. Retail market share tells a similar story. Year over year, Ford has lost over 18% of its domestic consumer base. That erosion weakens their ability to negotiate with suppliers and maintain financing leverage. Every vehicle that lingers unsold further corrodes their production metrics. Internal analysts warn that breaching lender covenants is no longer a theoretical risk. It is a real possibility by the third quarter. Auto consultant Brian Miller described the moment best. This isn't a promotional misstep. It is an identity fracture. Ford is trying to rewrite what it means to sell a car, and Wall Street is not buying it. That fracture is not confined to Ford's own house. It is rewriting the behavior of its rivals too. The competitive shockwave. What Ford began as a last-ditch program to move metal has now mutated into a crisis for the entire automotive ecosystem. Rivals are not just watching, they are being forced to respond. At General Motors dealerships across the country, customers are arriving with Ford's promotional emails in hand. They demand equivalent treatment. Staff are backed into impossible corners, match the deal and lose money, or hold the line and lose the sale. One Chevrolet dealer in Atlanta put up a banner that said it all: "We do not give away trucks, we build value." It was a declaration of identity, but also a protest against the direction Ford has pulled the industry. Toyota and Honda have taken a different approach. Internal memos have been circulated to their dealership networks forbidding reactive promotions. Their concern is clear: if the major players all follow Ford's lead, it could trigger a spiral into pricing anarchy. Hold the line has become the corporate rallying cry. But holding that line gets harder when every third customer is asking, "Why not us?" Meanwhile, the used market is collapsing under the weight of Ford's disruption. A late-model F-150 that fetched $38,500 just 4 months ago now sells for barely $31,000. That is a 19% drop in residual value in under one financial quarter. It is not just Ford's used vehicles affected. Every truck, SUV, and crossover is being dragged down. Platforms like CarMax and Carvana, whose profitability depends on predictable resale trends, have seen share prices drop between 14 and 22% since the program began. Investors do not like chaos, and Ford's strategy has made chaos contagious. Behind closed doors, European automakers are even more concerned. If American consumers come to expect free trucks and luxury crossovers with zero payments, international brands will be forced into pricing territory they cannot sustainably match. What began as one company's desperation may evolve into a global industry collapse. And yet, this shockwave is still building. The next tremor will not come from another discount. It will come from something far more invasive: the 32-page trap. It started with an email, encrypted, personalized, and marked time-sensitive offer. Inside was a document over 30 pages long, filled with legal language most recipients never bothered to read. But buried within that digital paperwork was the real cost of Ford's free vehicle program. Far from a simple handover, the agreement redefined what it meant to be a car owner in the 21st century. The document outlines the terms of participation in what Ford calls the Vehicle Acquisition Initiative. Recipients are asked to sign a 32-page contract that includes sweeping clauses on data rights, behavioral expectations, and continuous promotional duties. Nowhere does it say you own the vehicle. Instead, you are a participant in a long-term marketing partnership with Ford Motor Company. There are requirements to post brand-approved content on social media, appear at designated events, and agree to non-disparagement terms. In other words, you can take the vehicle, but you cannot criticize the company, online or off. One clause in particular, paragraph 17.3, permits Ford to access all telematics, in-cabin recordings, and app-connected data. Another section authorizes routine updates, which gives Ford the legal right to alter your vehicle's software, disable functions, or even lock systems remotely. While marketed as free, the fine print reveals a deeply one-sided transaction. This was never a gift, it was an exchange, and most Americans signed away their autonomy without even realizing it. As soon as those signatures were submitted, a deeper mechanism began to activate, one designed not to transport, but to track: the data harvesting machine. The moment buyers connected their phones to their new vehicles, the flow of information began. Calendar entries, voice memos, contact lists, and even biometric data synced automatically with Ford servers. For many, the realization didn't come until too late, after personal information was already in corporate hands. This was not standard vehicle telematics. It was a full-blown behavioral surveillance system disguised as convenience. Ford's system monitors far more than routes and maintenance status. In-cabin microphones listen constantly, not just for voice commands, but for environmental audio that is stored and analyzed under the guise of experience optimization. According to legal disclosures within the program's contract, this includes recordings of passengers, ambient conversations, and even accidental voice captures. Participants also permit Ford to collect biometric inputs from smartwatches and health devices, tracking heart rate, sleep cycles, movement patterns, and stress levels. The vehicle doesn't just observe your driving, it profiles your emotional state. Through GPS tracking, Ford builds a location pattern history, identifying which stores, offices, gyms, and homes are visited regularly. That data can then be linked to personal habits, advertising targets, and even predictive behavior modeling. Participants have no ability to opt out without violating the contract. Disabling the vehicle's wireless connectivity triggers a non-compliance flag. one that can result in vehicle deactivation. This isn't about performance or customer service anymore. This is about Ford becoming a data broker. By distributing free vehicles, they've created a nationwide test group of monitored individuals, subjects in a study they never agreed to join. And what makes it worse, that data isn't the only price buyers have to pay. The tax time bomb? Sarah Williams thought she had won the lottery. A brand new Ford F-150. No lease, no loan, no monthly payment. But when tax season arrived, so did a shock. An Internal Revenue Service bill for nearly $8,000. It was then that Sarah realized the vehicle had never been free. It had simply been reclassified. The Internal Revenue Service does not treat Ford's vehicle acquisition initiative as a giveaway. It treats it as compensation. Recipients receive Form 1099 MISC, listing the manufacturer's suggested retail price of the vehicle as income. That means a $53,000 Bronco is added directly to the household's taxable earnings. For many middle-income families, that results in a higher tax bracket, reduced eligibility for certain credits, and a tax liability between $8,000 and $10,000 due immediately. Participants cannot sell or transfer the vehicle to cover the cost. Contract terms prohibit resale or trade-in for a period of 36 months. That means recipients are stuck with an asset they cannot monetize and a tax burden they cannot escape. Even voluntary return of the vehicle does not remove the debt. The Internal Revenue Service still considers the vehicle received and taxes it accordingly. Some households are now facing audits after incorrectly assuming the vehicle was exempt from reporting. Others have had to borrow money just to pay the tax bill on something they thought was a gift. Financial advisors across the country are sounding alarms. Yet for those who cannot pay, the consequences are more than financial, because hidden in the fine print is one final threat, one that redefines control: the remote repossession clause. Most buyers think repossession involves a tow truck, a legal notice, and missed payments. Not anymore. Buried on page 27 of the Vehicle Acquisition Initiative contract is a clause that gives Ford unprecedented power: the ability to remotely disable the vehicle for any breach of contract. No court order, no due process. If a participant misses a required social media post, skips an event, or speaks critically about the brand, the vehicle can be locked and disabled where it sits. The engine shuts down, the doors won't unlock, and the alarm system activates. A notification is sent to the driver: vehicle disabled due to program non-compliance. At that point, Ford retains the legal right to retrieve the vehicle without further notice. And under the terms of the agreement, the participant remains liable for all outstanding tax obligations. Even after repossession, the implications go beyond the vehicle itself. The program sets a precedent for conditional ownership, a model where access to your property is tied to behavior. Legal experts warn that this is a dangerous shift in consumer rights. Ford retains ultimate authority over vehicle functionality, regardless of user payment history or conduct unrelated to driving safety. For Sarah Williams, the wake-up call came after she posted a neutral YouTube video reviewing her experience with the program. Ford's algorithm flagged the content. Within 24 hours, her vehicle was locked down. When she called customer support, she was informed that her post violated the terms of brand promotion. This isn't a contract, it's a leash, and what's coming next could make this look tame by comparison. Project Edison unveiled. Inside Ford's glass towers in Dearborn, Michigan, a confidential blueprint titled Project Edison was never intended for public release. It outlined the largest transformation in Ford's 120-year history. At its core was a plan to radically restructure the company's manufacturing footprint by replacing American workers with automation and shifting major production centers overseas. This was not a modernization strategy. It was a downsizing directive disguised as innovation. According to leaked internal memos, Ford intends to eliminate over 24,000 jobs across its United States factories. By the end of 2026, in their place, only 9,000 new positions will be created, most of them concentrated in specialized engineering roles and data integration fields that require entirely different skill sets. That means communities built around Ford's older plants will be abandoned as the company pivots toward electric vehicle production lines that demand 60% fewer human workers. To Ford's accountants, this is efficiency. To entire cities, it is devastation. 3 major plants in Michigan, Kentucky, and Missouri are scheduled to shut down within 18 months. The electric vehicle facilities that will replace them are already being built in regions like Mexico City, where labor costs are dramatically lower and government incentives are far more generous. The public never heard about Project Edison, but its effects will be felt in every corner of the American heartland. What began with free trucks was just the front-facing part of something far more calculated. As Project Edison moves from plan to reality, the next blow lands not in spreadsheets, but in steel and concrete. The Dearborn Farewell. For generations, the Dearborn truck plant was more than just a factory. It was Ford's soul. Built on land that once carried the hopes of Henry Ford himself, the facility stood as a monument to American industrial might. Now, under Project Edison, its days are numbered. Operations will cease entirely by the second quarter of 2026, with production shifted to a new mega facility in Mexico. No ceremony, no farewell, just silence. The Dearborn plant once employed more than 9,000 workers. Many of them had dedicated decades to the same assembly lines their parents and grandparents walked before them. They built the F-150 by hand, from steel frame to final trim. They poured sweat and pride into every vehicle. Now they are being replaced by automation arms and software platforms. Ford's new electric vehicle lines require only a fraction of the workforce. Where once there were 200 employees per line, there will now be fewer than 80, mostly technicians monitoring robotic systems. The workers have been offered retraining. Some have been promised relocation packages, but those offers often come with fine print, out-of-state moves, pay reductions, or entirely new job functions. Most employees know the truth. They are being pushed out, not transitioned. The ripple effects are already visible across Michigan. Tooling companies, parts suppliers, and third-party logistics firms that depended on Ford's volume have started laying off staff. Entire neighborhoods near Dearborn's plant are seeing home prices fall, school enrollment drop, and small businesses shutter. This is not a plant closing. It is a cultural severing. The heart of American auto manufacturing is being replaced, and Ford is not looking back. The Consumer Eligibility Countdown. While factories shut down and workers are dismissed, the program that lured in thousands of hopeful buyers is also coming to an end. Ford's vehicle acquisition initiative, what the public mistakenly calls the free truck giveaway, was never built to last. Internal documents confirm the program will close after 23,000 vehicles are delivered. As of early June, that threshold is rapidly approaching, and the eligibility criteria are tightening. Only residents of 18 major metropolitan areas remain eligible. These include cities like Atlanta, Seattle, Dallas, and Washington District of Columbia. Applicants must be between 25 and 38 years old, with household incomes between $75,000 and $125,000. They must not already own a Ford vehicle, and they must maintain active public profiles on at least 2 social media platforms. These requirements are not arbitrary. They are designed to manufacture brand advocates who can generate visibility, not just drive trucks. Each applicant who qualifies receives one of 4 high-profile models: the F-150 Lariat, the Bronco Outer Banks, the Explorer ST, or the Mustang Mach-E. But with the vehicle comes the 32-page contract binding participants to surveillance clauses, tax obligations, and mandatory content creation. The trucks are not gifts. They are instruments in a marketing system disguised as generosity, and the deadline is absolute. Ford intends to shutter the program by early August, regardless of public awareness or demand. Those hoping to take advantage of the offer must act immediately, but they must also understand what they are signing up for, because what looks like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity may be the start of a 3-year agreement that hands over their data, their time, and their voice. The legacy of market disruption. When historians look back, they will not call this a promotion. They will call it a pivot point. Ford's giveaway shattered the traditional boundaries of value, ownership, and control. A $50,000 truck no longer means what it used to. Pricing, for the first time in decades, has become symbolic, detached from actual payment or worth. When vehicles are handed out in exchange for behavioral data and promotional posts, what is really being bought and sold? The ripple effects have already broken the surface. Used car markets collapsed. A late model F-150 that sold for $38,500 in January now trades for just over $31,000. Depreciation models have failed. Auction pricing has become erratic. Dealers from other brands are seeing walk-ins demand similar offers, only to walk out disappointed. The psychological effect is permanent. Once consumers have seen free, full price becomes unacceptable. Even more dangerous is what this means for control. Vehicles that can be shut down remotely, owners contractually bound to praise a brand online, and buyers left with tax bills they never expected. This is not ownership. This is participation in a platform where the product watches you back. If Ford's model becomes the standard, then purchasing a vehicle will no longer be about freedom. transportation, or pride. It will be about compliance. The rules of car ownership have been rewritten, and it's not in your favor. Ford may have handed out trucks, but what's hidden in the fine print is the true cost of these free deals. If this video helped you see the bigger picture, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay informed, and thank you for watching.